Welcome to the Divine Feminines podcast and channel. I'm your host, Steph Desar, and in today's episode, we're talking karmic relationships. What are karmic relationships? What are the signs that you're in a karmic relationships? What are the impacts, and how do you navigate? And I think this is a really important one because a lot of people might get confused with karmic relationships and twin flame dynamics because there's certain karma that does need to play out, but they are two totally different relationships, and one serves a higher purpose and one really serves a purpose for you to be self-aware and to exit, and it's actually not a sustainable romance for the future. It's actually something that you need to fulfill as a contract probably, and to free yourself from eventually. So before I get started, don't forget to like and subscribe this channel. We're the Divine Feminines on YouTube, and we're on all major podcast platforms. That's Apple, Spotify, Google, and you can catch us on social media. That's Instagram and TikTok, Divine Feminines with a Z at the end. Why like and subscribe this channel? Well, we have so much stuff. Mind, body, soul empowerment. I drop an episode every Friday, and we have bonus content on the moon magic. We've also got, special events and portals and solstices that I cover, and twin flame dynamic, high vibrational soul connections, and how to balance your masculine and feminine energy. Something for all of us that are here to create the new paradigm of love and the new blueprint for the new earth. So what is a karmic relationship? Well, a lot of people may deny a karmic relationship because the beginning feels really intense. Sparks fly high, you're so pulled in, it's passionate, it's just drawing you in. It's almost like, oh my gosh, who is this person? And you're being pulled and pulled and pulled in. You can't sleep, or they're literally all you can think about. You actually feel quite suddenly and quite quickly very attached and very drawn and very addicted to this person. Now, addiction, attachment, red flags, because those are not healthy feelings to have. Love needs to be free. Love needs to have freedom, liberation, space to cultivate a healthy dynamic. But instantly you just feel so pulled in. It's quite fleeting, actually. It's quite volatile. Like, it just gets so intense so quickly, and that's why some people might think they're in a twin flame dynamic, because at the beginning with a twin flame dynamic you can be pulled in quite intensely. It's like love at first sight in some instances, and it's like stuff that you've never experienced, or you feel so drawn to the person. But this is why I'm doing this episode, because I think many people need to have this insight and to understand the differences and to know whether they're in a karmic relationship, because karmic relationships are not ones that we need to stay in for the longer term. It's definitely something that we need to be mindful of, and also understand what is it in us that attracted and manifested that dynamic. So they are love lessons, and they can be used as a fulfilling and monumental long-term partnership. I know that actually my marriage was, and I was married before, by the way, for those of you that didn't know, was definitely a karmic contract that I was playing out. I was having to go into that because I attracted it through my ego, through fear, through also playing out a karmic contract, playing out karma and contracts of patriarchy, of ancestral work that I needed to free for my feminine lineage. So it all served a purpose, to be honest, and it was all part of who I am today. So I don't want you guys to kind of also run from certain work that you need to do. If in a karmic relationship, or these signs that I call up are asking you to do some work, definitely do that work, because you'll otherwise just attract more of it. And I've mentioned that in the other episodes that I've done recently. So romantic relationships are meant to be healthy and balanced and fulfilling, of course, and karmic relationships are trying to fix the hurt and trauma we've experienced. So we're almost like, we've got those wounds, we've got those scars and those scabs, and they're not fully healed, but we attract the other kind of almost like an unconscious state. And what it is in us attracts something in them, because there's healing, trauma, and this is what we call trauma bonding, that pulls the two together. And so actually you think it's an attraction of like love and physical and maybe mind, body, soul, whatever you want to call it, but actually it's your trauma that's attracted. It's your trauma that's bonding with the other's trauma, and it's actually a vibrational resonance that is being called onto the other. But when you're not conscious of what needs to be healed, or you're not fully conscious of your total shadow, which, you know what, no one really ever is fully conscious until they sort of go through these moments. So I do feel that a lot of us will experience karmic relationships because it's kind of necessary, where we go from an unconscious state to a more conscious state. But when we become more conscious, we don't attract karmic relationships, and actually that's when we're ready to attract a divine counterpart, a healthy love dynamic. And, you know, we're choosing the person to heal the hurt of what happened in the past. So you might be, you know, having scars of codependency, abandonment, and you kind of run. I know personally that when I got married, it was me jumping to just have security and safety. I was scared. Deep down inside, I was scared to be abandoned. I was scared to... I wanted stability. I wanted safety. I came from, you know, a childhood where my parents did everything for me, but I did feel abandoned. I did feel unsafe. You know, there was certain family, ancestral kind of energy that was being passed down, and I felt quite, let's say, left and unloved or unsafe. You know, and there was disruption in the household. So I wanted something, but I was being drawn to that person for it. And to be honest, I actually kind of semi knew it, but I was still scared. And I'll say this loud and proud, even on my wedding day, I felt that there was something that I wasn't doing right. Like, it did feel like, am I doing the right thing? Like, is this really love, or am I just doing this because I want to be safe and, you know, kind of make everyone else happy, and this is what we're supposed to be doing, so this is what's expected of me, and I'm, you know, I've got a timing, I'm going to get older, I need to do this. It was a lot of that, and I can honestly say that to you guys now. It's deep, because when I look back, I just remembered that I wasn't 100% wholeheartedly ready for it, and I think my soul was like, no, you know, you need to heal, but I wasn't ready to hear that because I wasn't fully conscious. So, like, let's go through some of the signs of a karmic relationship. Like, think you may be in one? Well, let's see. You know, this experience can differ from person to person, but there's, you know, here's some sort of 5 key karmic relationship signs. Number 1 is there's a lot of drama. And especially if you're not healed and you're quite unconscious yourself, you're going to attract someone that is also somewhat unconscious as well, right? So that can also lead to a lot of drama. But with karmic relationships, you can expect continuous turmoil. I'll tell you, I had so much drama in my marriage. It wasn't necessarily to do with my husband, but people around us, the family. There was just always something going on, and I'm responsible for that, because, you know, I was the creator of that. I created that, you know, just as much as anyone else that was involved, but I attracted it and created it. You know, there's lots of ups and downs. It feels like a roller coaster. Nothing ever seems to be sort of smooth. It can feel unsettled. I guess with my experience, because I'm dropping in experiences because I think this helps. I felt like it was quite smooth sailing at most times, but then there was moments, and I felt like, I was navigating them with my husband at the time, but actually it was all part and part of the same thing. It was all interconnected, you know, but I didn't realize that, and now I can say there's no calmness. You may never know where you stand in a karmic relationship, or find yourself constantly questioning your partner's motives. I think I was definitely untrustworthy, and I was definitely insecure, and I was self-sabotaging a lot, and I didn't realize I was, but now I can say it to you guys, right? Now, you notice red flags. Oh my gosh, how many of us notice red flags, but we're scared to admit it. We're scared to sort of say, oh my gosh, that's a red flag, because we don't want to lose the person, or we're too attached, or, you know, but from controlling behavior, which, boy, oh boy, I know that. And sometimes controlling behavior doesn't have to be overt. It doesn't need to be in your face. It could be quite subtle. It can be kind of like an emotional kind of pull, blackmail almost, like getting in your head. But from controlling behavior to angry outbursts, karmic relationships tend to be filled with red flags all over. Like, don't get me wrong, some very strong, healthy, high vibrational soul connections, twin flame connections, you'll get red flags in those. But you'll get them, and the point is that you will clear them, and you might even go through separations or certain sort of in and out stages to clear that, so that you can come together, because the universe knows that you are able to, you've made an agreement for this high vibrational love that will not include red flags, will not include all this trauma, will only ask for the highest version of yourself. So there's a difference there. In the karmic relationship, it will never get cleared. It was almost like you're kind of stuck, and you're going to keep repeating those cycles. And these passionate relationships can bring out the worst in people. So you may find it hard to control your own actions. You start doing things that are entirely out of character. Of course, a relationship is fractious and difficult. It's not a healthy situation for any of you if you're in that space and there's lots of red flags just coming up and down. Secondly, you become both codependent. So you may already have had these codependency behaviors because that's what drew you into each other. And these emotions run high in karmic relationships. It might come with a side of like this strong codependency. As you start to connect with this new person, you may find it hard to leave them, that you can't be alone. I definitely had that in my marriage. I had that in other relationships. I didn't so much have it with my twin flame dynamic. I didn't want to leave them, but I knew it was okay. I knew it was I knew that my soul was like, no, this is okay. And there's a difference there. I started to experience different things because I was being called to heal. So it was a very different experience compared to previous relationships. And you might find yourself neglecting yourself. Now, a lot of divine feminines on the twin flame journey do go through that stage of because they've come from karmic relationships or been through these unhealthy dynamics, when they get to the twin flame dynamic, because it's so intense, they can feel like they can start to neglect themselves more. But the journey will push them to go and do the self-love, the self-mastery, the self-awareness. In the karmic relationship, it doesn't push you to do that. So you're still you're letting yourself go. How many of you have had that relationship where you're just like, oh my gosh, I've put on weight, I don't love myself, I don't really go out there and look after myself, just nurture myself. I'm so sort of stuck in this dynamic, pulled into it. It almost owns me rather than me owning my situation and what I'm creating. That is definitely codependency in a karmic situation. And this could be a sign that something is not quite right. Healthy relationships really are there to cultivate freedom, healthy time and space. It's important. I think couples should also have their own time, go on their own separate holidays and stuff. I know for me, it's a definite must. I do it anyway. And in my twin flame dynamic, we were doing that already, having our travel moments separate to each other as well as with each other. And I think that is so important for the soul. And I would be, keeping that up. It's something I absolutely need, So the time and space alone for me is a must, and it's a non-negotiable. It needs to be there. I need to have my time out on a regular basis. I want to have my holiday that is just with me and myself and I, not even with friends. So those are things that are healthy. They're a must for us to be our best selves. The next one is you don't communicate well. Communication is the foundation of a solid relationship, but when you're in a karmic relationship, you struggle to understand each other. Sometimes there's just no communication. You're just there with each other, and there's miscommunication. Things are being held in. In my marriage, I'm responsible for it too, but there was really bad communication. If anything, none. And it was living this life but not talking and just being in this robotic routine. It was just so crazy. I felt so lonely as well, and I started to wake up to these things where I was like, wait, this is not right. Why is this happening? This is pulling me down more. So you may argue with your partner about seemingly small things. You might get really peed off about stuff, to add to insults, and really unkind things are being said, or when they're being said, they're not being communicated afterwards. There's no real understanding of love languages. and you do argue compassionately. So I don't really have this as much, but this can be, everything's different, every dynamic's different, but forget the fireworks. When you argue, it's like an atomic bomb. So it's almost like it takes you out for a week. Like, your energy is drained, you really feel so poor that you can't really even focus on your personal life, and on you. It's really just taking a hit on your health, your mind, body, soul, and your well-being. And the disagreement will likely move swiftly from one subject to the next. So it's like an ongoing battle that you don't seem to get out of, which that isn't healthy. So those are some signs. So if you're experiencing any of those signs, right, I urge you to kind of just take a bit of stock of what I'm saying. Now, you may think that you're in a twin flame dynamic. It's not for me to confirm. I've always said, if you are, you can ask the universe. But if you're experiencing some of this and you're in a twin flame, and you think you're in a twin flame dynamic, navigate, because you might not be. It could be karmic. A lot of people try to justify a karmic relationship as twin flame because that's their way of saying, oh no, I need to stay, right? And that's really unhealthy. And that's why the label twin flame can carry these attachments to it, and that's why I don't like to call it twin flame dynamic. Call it, but I need to give it a name because it is a journey. Divine partnerships, divine journeys, aligning you to a divine partner. But definitely look at your situation and ask yourself candidly and honestly, am I experiencing all of this? And have I been pulled? I'm not feeling lifted. Like, if you're experiencing some of this, but then you do feel like there is a higher purpose and you're being pulled and guided to do the healing, and your partner needs it, and you're both kind of wanting that, and there's some healthy conversations about that, then that's not karmic. There's a high vibrational soul connection playing out where you're being asked to do the healing. But if it's not going in that direction, then it is karmic. So what are the effects? Well, you will be drawn in fast. You will be taken in so quickly that you're just like, what is happening to my life? Why is this taking over every moment of my life? Why is it all encompassing or so absorbing? And that's not healthy. You may feel addicted to them, and that's not a good thing. Any addiction is not a good addiction. An addiction to food, addiction to the gym, addiction to drugs, addiction to just overdoing something, an addiction to doing something too much. That's an addiction. Right? But being addicted to them is not healthy, because you need to allow space for yourself and for the other. It's very codependent, it's very clingy, it's not allowing you to breathe or them to breathe. You may feel exhausted, and I don't even think you will be feeling exhausted, because energetically it takes a hit on your mind, body, and soul. So you're always having to interact with this person, try to rectify the last thing, and if you're having those arguments, you're going round and round in circles, or you're feeling like, it's just dragging you. You might have a high moment and a really fun moment, but most of it is quite pulling on your energy, and you just feel exhausted. You need time for yourself, you need time to kind of rest and recoup, but you're not kind of taking that on board, and you're still being kind of, let's say, feeling like you just need to carry on doing what you're doing, feeling like that there's a pull that you can't control, but you can, right? You can't sustain the relationship. It's almost like, the bottom line is these karmic connections are unsustainable. This is not healthy. We are supposed to be operating at our highest frequency and vibration. So how could you do that with a karmic relationship if all of these things that I've just explained are happening to you? That does not put you in your best energy or your best vibration or frequency, and you're not going to be part of new earth. You will be living on old earth, literally. So in a worst case scenario is that karmic relationships can impact your mental health and well-being, and unfortunately, as though the relationship, it just becomes pretty toxic, and it's so draining, and it takes up a lot of time and energy. Now, the purpose of karmic relationships are really just to teach us that they serve as lessons that we can be better people. And how can we be better people, better souls? We can grow through learning and healing past hurts, trauma, and any wounds that are left open from childhood or past life. And in these karmic, relationships, it's usually a karmic contract that has been agreed before come to earth to say, we're going to have this karmic contract play out. And this is going to serve a purpose to catalyze our growth, to move on. We know that this relationship is not going to be a sustainable one, but this meeting is necessary to allow us to have this awakening moment, or a self-awareness moment of, oh my gosh, there is something that's being called for me to do growth, to do the work, to evolve, to level up. So the theory is, that you're not supposed to be in it for the long term. You need to come out of it, but you need to be able to understand that that is what is being called of you, so that you can sort through those issues and eventually come out of it, because you're not meant to stay in it for the long term. You're meant to see what is being shown to you, and it might take a while because you go through all the intensity, you get attracted, you do the whole relationship thing, because this is genuinely like for romantic dynamics. So it tends to happen in romantic dynamics. You can also have karmic contracts with soulmates, soul family, friends, don't get me wrong, but in a relationship dynamic, this is where it will pull you and it will draw you in. So once you realize that actually this is not sustainable, you do need to walk away from it, because by staying in, you are saying, yes, I consciously see that there's a problem here and that it can't be rectified, and these red flags, and we're not going to improve. This is a continual downward spiral. We keep going in cyclical motions of the same thing over and over again, and we're not exiting that experience. We're not exiting that world, that dimension that we're in. So when you do become aware that this is something that you cannot heal or grow together, it's about coming out, and it's an important one. Some of the most hardest endings of relationships are karmic contract relationships. Ending my marriage was one of the hardest things to do, because the other person hadn't done anything wrong to me. They weren't a bad person really, but it was something that was not right for my soul. My soul felt suppressed. I felt really pulled down. There was a lot of, like I said, controlling, codependency, karmic, past life, patriarchy playing out, that I needed to liberate and free for my feminine lineage and my feminine ancestry, and for the divine feminine rising in me and on this earth. I would be here today if I didn't do that. So sometimes it's really hard, because sometimes the person isn't a bad person, but there's a lot around it, and you can see them for who they really are, but then there's all of these dynamics that are not going to improve, and you don't feel good. It always has to come back to you. If you don't feel good, you have a choice to leave. Don't stay somewhere where you are not feeling fulfilled, where you are not feeling your best self, where you are not feeling like you can be who you truly are meant to be. We're here on earth to remember who we really are. So it's important to be able to understand that you need to leave this dynamic. It can be very hard and it might take some time, but as I said, these relationships are not sustainable. They're not for the long term. They're not for your highest purpose and growth. And by being able to acknowledge and accept that you need to leave is saying to yourself, I know in me that I have growth. I know in me that there is an opportunity for me now to level up. Don't run from yourself, because if you don't accept, like there's leaving a karmic relationship and not seeing what you need to do in yourself, you're only going to manifest that in the next relationship or into other dynamics. So it's being able to understand that and then start to do the work. Ending that relationship is claiming back your power. It's calling back your energy. It's really saying, right, it's time for me. I know that I need to do this for me. This is for my highest and best good. And it can be really hard because there is a lot of attachment. There's a lot of codependency. There's a lot of trauma bonding. And you feel like, how am I going to be able to do this without the other person? But when you look from a higher perspective, was that relationship any good for you? Were you coming out feeling, like you were a better person? Were you being propelled to be a better person? Did you feel like you were gaining from the dynamic, or were you feeling depleted? I always say it's almost like you go in with a scale, and you go in and the scale's like 0, 0. But if you're starting to feel like the part of your scale's being pulled down and you're going to like -20, -30, and then, this is like staying here and you're not actually, this is not moving up, because if this is going down by -20 and this is going up by +50, you're +30, right? That's the maths. So actually there is a gain, and you actually are feeling better, and overall the balance of the pros, of the pull up and the pull down, let's say the positive and the negative, weighs out to be a better outcome. If you're not, being added to, if your soul and your spirit, and you're not feeling like you're gaining and being supported, and you're being pulled and pulled and pulled, you're just going to end up in the deficit. And so this is a karmic debt that needs to be paid, yes, and you are paying it by going through this experience, but then you have to call back your energy and leave it, because that's when you're saying, I'm ready to grow, I'm ready to take on more, I'm ready to accept better experiences for my soul and my journey. So I hope that this helps. I am going to do some more content on karmic relationships and dynamics, because I do think that what's happening right now on earth, where everyone's being called to ascend higher and vibrate at the highest frequency, a lot of them are having to end karmic relationships, understand those dynamics, liberate from them. So it's a really necessary topic right now for New Earth. So with that being said, I hope you like this video, like and subscribe, leave me a comment, and I'm sending you lots of love, light, peace and abundance. Mwah, mwah, mwah.